guys, it's Levi for the Rag Company, and welcome to DETALKS. Today, Mr. David Patterson of Lake Country Manufacturing. How you doing, brother?
Good, you?
I'm good. I'm especially happy because you're here. We get to have fun doing this for the week. We get to do all these fun videos and hang out finally, and we talk probably every couple weeks. We just call each other and chat. We follow each other on Facebook, all that stuff. We get to see each other randomly.
Yeah, cool events and trainings.
Yep. So this is fun because we actually get to hang out for the week. So this video we wanted to basically, while David's here, we want to utilize his experience in foam and buffing technology and pad technology and stuff. But one, to help you guys out when you are maybe a weekend warrior and you're just starting out and you're buying that first polisher and you don't really know what you're getting pads with that kit, but you don't really know the reason behind those pads and why having a standard operating procedure when it comes to buffing pads makes sense. You'll hear us talk about that a lot in other episodes. It saves you time, saves you money, saves you energy if you have that routine or standard operating procedure on how you go about detailing a car.
And most importantly, it makes you money.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. If you can get it done faster and quicker and easier, it's easier to replicate to others. They're in turn making you lots of money. So one thing we were noting is that, you know, we sell Lake Country buffing pads. We co-brand them with them. And we have kits available, or not kits, but lineup available on our site in which you can purchase these pads. And how you go about utilizing them in your shop or at home. For those of you that are weekend warriors or guys that have a shop. And then once we explain that, we want to show you how to experiment from there once you've got the basics down. So
I would agree. So, and one thing I would say is a standard operating procedure is ideal for any detailer, any shop, but for anybody really. It's just, what is that standard operating procedure made of? And is it a system? Is it a procedure that you've come up with? And how do you work that into your business in order to stay profitable? So, or just to have an effective routine for our process. So, systems or kits are extremely important, especially for people that are just getting into polishing paint or getting into the hobby or the business. Just to have a standard, a place to start from, a platform. And usually what I find is if they stick with polishing paint or detailing or doing more things, you're most likely going to expand a little bit outside of that range and possibly even experiment with different products kind of all over the place, whether it's liquids like polishes and compounds, or if it's foam pads or different manufacturers or microfiber. At some point, the person using the product is probably going to want to try something new. And the biggest thing is how do you incorporate that into your business? Or at least for me and for most of the people that I talk to. And I think what's mostly important to that is the profitability. So when I see a shop or when I go into a shop, if there are more than 2 employees, there should be some sort of a standard operating procedure for those people. Otherwise, from my experience, a lot of those shops aren't as profitable at all, or aren't as profitable as they could be, because they don't have the standard in place for these men and women that might be detailing. So I think that that's genius. It's really easy if you use a system like the Optimum Hyper system or Rupes or any of the other brands that create a full line, and it's a great point. But most of the detailers that I see that are custom detailers, a one-man band, maybe 2 guys or 3 guys working together, they usually do not use systems. They use a process that they've developed. They know their routine. They know their products. They're in tune and technically experienced to be able to come up with a plan for that car on the fly.
Right.
Or switch it up on the fly too.
Yeah, and I utilize the system in my shop for my guys because at one point we had 6 employees,
Yep.
and we needed to make sure that everybody was on the same page. So we used the Optimum Hyper system, we used the waffles, and we used the pad washers. And I taught all my guys how to just work from that system. And then as they got more comfortable and advanced with that, then we would branch out and show them a different type of compound, a different type of pad, a different usage for some of these things. Mostly, though, once they had that basics.
Yep.
So take, for instance, this HDO series of pads. Technically you have a cut pad, a heavy cutting pad, a light cutting pad, a polish pad, and then a fine polishing pad.
Yeah.
And then you're going to use basically the compounds or polishes appropriate, liquids appropriate for that lineup. But if I grabbed a yellow foam and threw it in there and said, all right, here you go, try to figure that out. If you don't know how these pads react, you're not going to know how to utilize the yellow foam if you don't have that baseline on what you're using. So the key is to make sure if you're just starting out, start with buying a family series, so to speak, of those pads.
Yeah.
So whether it be our flat foams, whether it just be our microfiber, a cut and a polished version of it, whether it be even the Optimum waffles or the HDOs, or even the force pads that we have. Buy the series, utilize them, try them, work with them, and get that down. So for instance, in this lineup, the HDO series, the microfiber pad with the hole in it, which we don't carry, is the cutting pad.
Correct.
For heavy cutting if you need to get heavy scratches and things like that.
Yep.
The blue is your light cutting pad. Now, the beauty of this series is the blue can be also a polishing pad.
Correct.
If you need.
Yeah.
But it takes you learning how to use it.
Exactly. And some of these things I say with experience because I have had employees or tried to train people and anticipating them thinking that they have the same thought process or the same knowledge, technical knowledge that I had, and that they could adapt as easy, and it was a complete failure. So anytime that I've attempted to teach somebody how to polish and did not have a standard operating procedure or a system that I had for them in place, never amounted to everything that I had hoped it to be.
Right.
So, and to me that's really important because everybody's time is important. My time teaching them, but also their time learning is important. So anything that you can do to be more effective and communicate more effectively to that system will help you in the future to grow. But even if you go off and do your own combinations or you change some things, those are the times to not just keep that in your head, but to create a standard operating procedure for your combinations.
Yeah.
So,
one thing we did was you could use the orange pad. We would use, say, for instance, hyper polish.
Yep.
And you could use hyper polish with the blue foam.
Yep.
And get a really good cut because you're using the foam to cut and abrade for you, and the polish sort of as a lubricant.
Yep.
Then we could switch it to the orange and get a finer polish if we wanted to, and then go to the black as a final finish if we want. Utilize only one product.
Yep. Or you can, you fine tune that to create the best process for a one-step polish.
Right.
So like the orange gray, this would be my go-to kind of for a one-step, but I try it with the orange pad and maybe it didn't correct as much, but it finished great.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll try it with the blue pad. Maybe I can get a little bit more correction on it and see what type of finish it gives me. And oftentimes you'll find like one is going to provide a better solution for you.
Yeah. So one of my favorite uses in my shop that we would utilize was we'd take, basically, say you've got a 3-pad system. So those are your only 3 pads that you can use. And utilizing a product, simple, mostly because we sell it, but you can utilize any product line, is the hyper polish system, where you use the hyper compound, the intensive polish, and the hyper polish as your 3-step. You can basically create it with these 3 pads. That was the easiest way forward to teach my guys how to start. We would throw in a microfiber if they needed a cut, but they never received work that needed a heavy compounding step. and they would assist on jobs that did need a heavy compound step, just so that we'd never kind of confuse them, so to speak.
Yep.
So 90% of the time, they were only using the intensive polish and the hyper polish. And if they ever needed that next level, you know, the Spinal Tap term of 211,
Yeah.
we would bring them into the blue foam or into the microfiber to cut with them, but utilize it as the old adage is, you know, start light, do least amount of damage possible to a customer's car. So if you're using the black foam and polish and nothing happens, then don't touch it. Then we step up to the next one, and you may try polish with the orange pad or step up with the intensive in the orange pad and see what you can get out of it. 90% of the time, we could correct most of the defects in a vehicle for the price point. Mind you, we're not going full 4-stage, but we could do it with one step with the orange foam and intensive polish.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
could get 90% of the car. The customers loved it. It looked great. But this way, my guys were never, because I've walked into shops and guys have, you know, 5 or 6 different polishes, different manufacturers, 27 different pads. But that's how I learned, was just you have a wool pad, you have a green foam pad, and you have a black foam pad.
Yep.
And you use your rotary, and that's all you use. You got a wool to cut, foam to polish, and black foam to finish with. And you had a cutting compound that was super aggressive, and you had a polish.
Yep.
And you use the polish with those 2 pads. And you did 3 steps on every single car. And it took a lot of work, and it hurt. And I have a lot of arthritis from that.
Yeah.
But it was simple for me, because once I knew how paint reacted with that, it was easy to start the next process, coming from using rotary for so long, to then make that move into a DA, do the same thing.
Yep.
Start practicing. Okay, I've got a microfiber for cutting. I've got this pad for medium polish, and then this pad for a final finish.
Well, and every shop's gonna be a little bit different. You know,
Yep.
everybody, their customer base is different. The types of vehicles that they see in their area is different, and that's gonna play into what their standard operating procedure is. And being able to go down your combinations or have a list of those for your employees is something that, in my opinion, is priceless.
Yeah.
It's easy for me, you or I, to walk into a shop, especially my shop, and it's got different colored pads everywhere.
And we know what they do and how they work.
Yep. I grab it and feel it, rub it on my face, and I
Yep,
know what I'm going to do.
Put it on my lips.
Yeah,
see
yeah.
How, if I'm not sure the material of it,
Yep.
as to how soft or aggressive, I touch it to my lips. But yeah, that's how, you know, some of us that have been around a lot. But if I'm training a new guy, it makes so much more sense to get them just started on the basics, get it done. And if they can't get it done or accomplish the task set forth based on that, that's when they come back and go, I need help.
Yep.
And that's when I'd go back over, reassess the situation, go, so what'd you try? I tried all this, I did this. All right, now, pull something out of the cupboard that they're not allowed to touch. We pull one product out, you know. Maybe it's a Magic 205, or maybe it's, you know, a heavy, you know, diminishing abrasive compound, or, you know, a different type of polish.
Yeah.
And we grab, you know, a flat foam or, you know, something else and put it on there and go, all right, this is a special case. Don't think this is the same for every car.
Yep.
And we try it, and sometimes that gets the result. And then they're like, holy cow, and we give it to them and say, all right, go for broke.
Yep.
And they get the car done, and then it just adds that knowledge to they're like, man, can I use that? But I'd get guys that would all of a sudden have that expectation work, and then that was what they try for every car.
Yep. And
It doesn't work that way, and you can't utilize that pad for every situation.
No.
And there's a reason we pick a standard operating procedure, so that you get the same results every time.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny that you say that about the intensive polish and how you just utilizing hyper polish or intensive polish or whatever product you use, but then going through those lines to fine tune. And that was something, not that we're talking about HDO pads, but that was something that this line specifically, that mentality was used in that. So obviously when you get into your black pad, it's more of your fine finishing, your finishing or glossing type of things. But the core of what you're going to use for cutting, like cutting and polishing, is relatively universal. And even if we draw the black pad back into it, what's unique about this is when you've looked at old systems or different things, you're going to see usually a cutting pad that's got a little bit larger of a cell structure. Right. The cell structure and the firmness and some other variables go into that. But with the HDO line, that mentality was kind of used, and essentially all these foams are 80 pore foams, which is typically known as a finishing foam.
Right.
And there's some other variables within the density and the compression of these foams that really change the performance of them and offer something different. And what's cool about that is you can, like you said, tune those with your compound or a polish to get whatever result that might be perfect for that paint at the time. And because of the type of foam for its cutting purpose, it works well, but because they're small pore foams, and because of some of the other characteristics, they finish too. So this line specifically, once you get up into these, they're very universal.
Yeah.
You can use it with a polish or a compound, and part of that reasoning for developing something like that is because I personally will do anything that I can to use a polish before I go to a compound.
Yep, me too.
Because compounds are dusty, and this is a broad statement, but compounds are dusty. They have a shorter working time. They're not as user-friendly. They don't wipe off the paint as easy. There are a bunch of different characteristics, and like I said, that's a pretty broad blanket statement, but those same opposite characteristics of a polish are what I would attempt to get out of that before I would jump into my compound.
Right.
So I would use a polish on the black pad, then jump to the orange, then jump to the blue,
Yep.
and then jump to the microfiber with that same polish before I would ever grab my compound.
Right.
And that's just my way of thinking, and everybody's a little different.
Yep. No, and that's how we, I always tried to iterate it to my guys. This is how it works. This is the progression, and learn this first.
Yep.
Then experiment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get comfortable with a product and a pad line, and get good at that. Then go buy the next best thing or the new best thing or whatever.
Yeah.
Often too many guys don't know how to use the right pad with this product or this machine or this, and they get confused and they have bad results, and it's just user error. It has nothing else for
when
that.
You think about the big picture of it all, going back to that different mentality, but then it's creating that based on your experience and your shop and your customers is then creating your SOP or your standard operating procedure off of what you do.
Yep.
and your customers and everything like that. And I think one of the things to think about is there's a reason why the largest companies in our industry use standard operating procedures, whether it's 3M or Norton or Mothers or Meguiar's or the main heavy hitter players when you get into the large professional market, not just in our core high-end detailing market, and obviously we all go outside of that, but when you think about some of the big brands in the last decade, those companies all have procedures for their specific products mostly, but then also procedures that work for the shop, that makes it profitable, that makes it all in one, an SOP.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. Well, thanks, dude, for coming. I appreciate it.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So much fun. So get good at the system, get good at the polishing pads, figure out the right standard operating procedure you have. That way you can create a baseline and you're not making mistakes and all that stuff that everybody does. Get good at one thing first, then grow on that.
And document it. Don't just keep it in your head.
Yeah. Be a scientist.
Yeah.
Figure it out. And so if you want to learn more, check out Lake Country Manufacturing on Facebook and Instagram. You can check out the website, lakecountrymfg.com. Check out David on Facebook. Find him, add him, send him a friend request. And you can check out his shop, Perfect Shine Detailing, on Instagram. Make sure you comment below, subscribe to the channel, because that's what we're all about. Give us a thumbs up, like us, and for more videos, stay tuned right here on the Rag Company YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.